Today I'm demonstrating a still life drawing, just a quick 5-minute drawing that's going to show object placement in proportion. It's not going to show any fine details. I just want to learn to draw what I see on the paper. And we'll start. All right, so when I'm drawing, I like to start with some basic shapes. I like to start with the biggest item on the page, and that to me is that full orange. And then I'm going to start drawing the objects kind of in relation to that. So kind of where exactly does that orange go? In order to draw them accurately, the first thing you have to do is understand where they are on the page. So I make a whole lot of different lines, and when I'm using vine charcoal, I can easily erase with my hand or shade it in just to kind of give yourself a little bit more, I guess, get rid of the hard lines, so to speak. So if you're making mistakes and you're getting frustrated, you don't want to actually erase. What you want to do is kind of use your fingers to just blend those objects in so that you can do more of your rendering and not focus on that mistake. All right, so right now I have a few different objects on here, and the idea is to be able to start showing them in proportion to each other. Now, you're paying attention to foreground, middle ground, and background. In the foreground, I have this beautiful little wedge, and that wedge is, right now, I've made it almost as big as the orange that's actually in the background. So that's something that you're going to notice happens a lot as you're working with vine charcoal. When you're learning to draw in proportion, it's easy to make mistakes. That's why we don't grade what you're doing, just that you do it. Okay, so now I'm looking here as this wedge is really important because it's right there in the front. Oh man, it's a little bit crooked. I can easily fix those things. So don't expect that when you're working on a quick drawing that it's going to be perfect that first time. You're going to have to spend some time learning to see where all of the objects actually go. And actually, that first time I drew that wedge, it was totally crooked. No big deal. And I may end up with a bunch of different lines on here that end up making no sense. That's actually a good thing, because what you're doing is learning to draw what you see, and it's not always gonna it's not typical for a student or even an advanced artist to make it perfect that very first time. I think it's a good thing to spend a lot of time on different lines and being able to show, that you're exploring, that you're learning, okay? So if you were watching and you're like, well, gosh, my art teacher can't even do this in, one shot. She had to redraw this a whole bunch of times. That's good. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's what is a big problem for a lot of people when it comes to drawing, is you expect that it's going to be this perfect, drawing right from the start. Or if your teacher's drawing it perfectly that very first time, then why can't you? So again, what I'm doing is I'm just exploring my paper and trying to figure out again and again, where do these objects go in relation to each other? And how do I tell which one is which? You don't want them to all blend together. You want them to be their own individual object. I can't even get to the sunglasses because I'm so focused on making sure that the objects behind those sunglasses are drawn accurately. Now the sun just decided to shine through the window, so created a few different shadows for me, so fix that up. All right, so even though this orange right here is not darker than this orange here, I had to draw that darker shadow just so that I could help identify which one I was working with. So whatever you have to do to make it work for you is fine with me. One of the later exercises that we do that is also really helpful is called subtractive method. And that means starting with a paper that's completely covered in charcoal And then what we do from there is we begin just by erasing. And that's a really fun activity to be able to do. It's like the opposite of what we're doing here, putting all these dark tones on here. Now I'm gonna just now my timer has gone off, so technically I can stop right there and move on to the next thing. So it's important for me to be able to, if you want to finish it, you can. If you don't like what you have, this is when you're gonna go ahead and stop, turn to the next page, and start over, okay? Nothing wrong with doing that. The good thing about being able to do this many times is you're learning each time that you're doing a drawing. So if you didn't finish it in that time period, there's nothing wrong with that. If it makes you, feel anxious or uncomfortable because you didn't finish it, then by all means you can. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move on to the next one and try again.